Hello and welcome to another episode of I Guess I'll Do It with Pat House. Today I have a good friend on. We haven't seen each other in forever. I cannot wait to catch up. He has a dry bar special and I love what he does on Instagram. It's one of my absolute favorite things that one of my buddies has going. It's a horrible intro for it, but he roasts kids and we'll talk all about it. It's absolutely hysterical. Today I have my buddy Andy Gold here. Andy, what's up?
What's up, Pat? I thought we had already started. I was flexing about Google Chrome. Do I have to do that again?
No, we are all square. See how it works is I say your name and then you start talking. It's very similar to a live stand-up show. Dude, it's good to have you on, man. What's going on?
It's good to be here, man. When was the last time I saw you in person?
The last time
in Philly?
It was in Philly. We had the one-nighter at the Punchline where you headlined, and before that, and I always talk about off the top where I met my guest. You and I met at Wise Guys in Salt Lake City on a Dan Cummins weekend, and that weekend fucking ruled.
Yes.
I only had the one weekend there, been there one time, but that a lot of things from that weekend stand out to me, and Dan Cummins has a huge following in Salt Lake City, so all his shows were sold out, and like I just remember that weekend being awesome, and you were the MC that weekend, and even though that was probably like 6 or 7 years ago already. We've kept in touch ever since. And that's one thing I love about stand-up is that even if you work with somebody one weekend, you still just keep in touch and check in with each other years down the line.
Yeah, that is a great thing about stand-up. I was thinking about that the other day. In fact, I don't do festivals as much as I used to, but back when I was doing them, it was great because I was like, I'll bet you in most like major cities, I have a couch to crash on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was a couch guy for years and years and years on the road, and people would even be like, oh, you're going to be in Grand Rapids? Oh, hit up so-and-so or whatever.
Yeah. It's this whole kind of lifestyle, you know, even without being like a successful comedian, this really cool lifestyle accompanies it.
Yeah.
Where you get to, kind of, there's this camaraderie of people who do this kind of weird thing that nobody else does.
Yeah, that nobody else understands.
Yes, exactly.
Not even like your musician friends. Like we may travel, we may tour, we do live shows, we perform, but like comedians only understand other comedians. Just the same way a songwriter has their own shit. Their own specifics.
Music is something that can be enjoyed in the background.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I love it when venues haven't really made that distinction yet, and they think they can have comedians in the same way they have bands with a bunch of other shit happening.
Yeah, the playoff game on 17 TVs. The touch tune's still on.
Pool tables,
pool table, poker machines, Quizzo and bar trivia at the exact same time on the other side of the room.
And that's the vision these bar owners have. It's like, yeah, man, it's going to be a happening place with all kinds of shit going on. And then, over in the corner, we have this comedian telling jokes, Yeah,
it's gonna be... he's next to the axe throwing.
Yes. So you got me thinking about like hell gigs. When you sent me the message to think of hell gigs.
Yeah, let's open with it.
Well, the worst gigs for sure were probably like early on when I first started going on the road a little bit. But that's also was like my peak excitement with comedy. When I was just so excited to be doing comedy.
Yeah, you're excited to go to Cincinnati.
Yes. I was excited to go to Cedar City, Utah.
Yeah.
And play...
The emphasis is in how you say it. Like early in your career, like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm going to Buffalo. And then your 17th time there, you're like, oh, I got to go to Buffalo. It's all how you say it.
Totally. So at the time, I didn't really think of them as hell gigs, but they've grown in my mind to kind of see how truly bad they were. And I think it was my very first time actually going on the road for a paid gig. I was featuring. And it was comedy night, and the headliner's closer was his whole closer was about how he looks like he has Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. And he does, to his credit. He looks like he has Down syndrome.
Shane Gillis?
No. No, that would be sweet. He looks way more Down syndrome than Shane Gillis. And he takes his hat off and he's just like, look at me, I have Down syndrome. And all the drunk bar people are going bananas. But then after the comedy show, and I still have the poster, I saved the poster, was Extreme Midget Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Comedy night and Extreme Midget Wrestling.
In the same night.
In the same night, yes. And the wrestling got such a better turnout than the comedy.
I totally believe it. Ellen DeGeneres used to have a joke about doing stand-up in her early days, and it said Ellen DeGeneres, and I'm going to say broccoli cheddar. It was soup. It said Ellen DeGeneres, and the soup of the day was broccoli cheddar, and she's like, and the soup did by far better that night. And I heard her say that 20 years ago, and that has always stood out to me, because it's so fucking true and believable.
Well, and I know midget is no longer the proper term, but that's how it was advertised.
Oh, I'm sure.
It didn't say extreme little person wrestling.
Yeah, it's got to be short. End of the point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the ring
awful.
was outside, and they were setting up the ring in the parking lot during the comedy show, and all of the buzz in the room was about, oh my God, we're going to watch these guys wrestle. This is going to be so funny. It wouldn't even be fair to say the comedy was a warm up to it. It was just another thing, but for sure the spotlight was on the extreme.
Were the people at least paying attention to the comedy show beforehand, or were you just something in the way?
It was one of those where there's like a table of people paying attention.
Yeah, a table, singular, one group.
You do the comedy for that table. Did you ever do gigs for Charter Talent, Pat?
No, I've heard the name, but no, yes. I have not.
Well, they're notorious. They're out of business now, and it was a Charter Talent gig.
So what does that mean, charter? Like, is charter a specific term, or is that just the name of the company?
That's just the name of the company.
Oh, okay.
And they ran a hustle that went for about 7 years, and it actually eventually made national news because it was a big con. What they would do is they would promise venues that they would have a semi-famous comedian there. Not a famous comedian, but somebody who...
Oh, I was going to point out semi-famous. Like, what does that even mean?
Like Dustin Diamond from Saved by the Bell, Screech.
Washed up celebrities.
Washed up celebrities who are now
Rest in peace, actually.
Rest in peace, dude. He was hung, too. Give it up for Screech, man. I never saw his adult film. It's on the bucket list.
I never seen it either.
Hopefully he doesn't disappoint me the way Hulk Hogan did, saying the N-word. That was a heart-wrenching moment for me. That was...
So Charter, what do they do?
So they would promise the venues, hey, we'll have Dustin Diamond or the Dynamite guy, Jimmy Walker. Somebody where it's kind of believable.
I've worked with him, Jimmy Walker. I have a great story to share after your story.
I want to hear about it.
Oh, I got it.
Oh, but anyway, these guys never actually agreed to the gig. And literally the day before, Charter Talent would contact the venue saying, hey, listen, we're really sorry, Jimmy Walker canceled or Dustin Diamond canceled, but thankfully we got somebody to fill in at the last minute. And the venue's like, okay, but they were still under contract to pay, the $1,000 or whatever it was for the comedy show. So the headliner, who was this road dog, would pick up a check for, $500. $300 for him and $200 for the feature or something. And the other $500 would go to Charter Talent.
Oh, wow.
And they did this several times a week for years.
Was it one person behind this, or was it like a group of people? Do you know?
It was one person, and he changed his name frequently. And he lived in Michigan, I think. And I know he booked gigs out on the East Coast back in the day. So that's why I was wondering if Pat...
No, I've never heard of this. But that is a... wild scam.
Yeah, you should Google it, and your listeners should Google it. Charter Talent scam.
Oh, I wonder if any of my friends or some of the older veteran Philly comics ever got roped into this.
Yeah, they were.
I have a handful of people I'll ask today. All right, to go back to Jimmy Walker real quick. The first time I worked the comedy club in the Borgata Casino in Atlantic City, I was with Jimmy Walker, and he was super nice. We had a great time, talking in the green room and everything. He sold merch. He sold old T-shirts and headshots that said Dynamite on them. or maybe he would write Dynamite on them if you bought it. And he had literally been doing comedy 50 years. He has been a stand-up since the prior Carlin, Lenny Bruce days. He's been around just as long as them. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, he's been doing it for decades. So he's pretty over it. And he said the coolest, most badass thing I've ever heard to people. People would try to talk to him or get him to say Dynamite, and he would look right in their eyes and say, if you ain't buying, I ain't talking. And he would literally shoo them away. And it was like, that is a man that is over it. He has seen it all. He has done it all. Give him $20 or get the fuck out.
I'm on 100% on his side.
Oh, me too. It was just, I had seen a lot of people sell merch, and I sold merch myself, CDs back in the day and T-shirts, but I've never seen anybody just blatantly be like, buy my shit or get the fuck out of my face. That was literally, not verbatim, but that was his attitude. And if you ain't buying, I ain't talking. Like, I'm going to get that as a tramp stamp. That I think about that 3 times a week. And this was probably 12 years ago.
Think of the Greek hell that must have been that man's life.
Oh, yeah.
Every day, several times a day.
For years. For decades.
For decades. That would be enough to turn the sweetest person into a total curmudgeon.
Yeah. I enjoy selling merch because it's extra cash on the road, but it's pretty brutal to greet people show after show and have people not buy stuff and ask you dumb questions and then not buy anything and try to haggle the price. I get it. It's exhausting. But he was like, nope. If you didn't have cash in your hand, I think it had to be cash too. He's not going to be doing any Venmo or any Square reader.
Yes.
Like, it was phenomenal.
I love it. What kind of merch are you selling these days?
Actually, I'm trying to get back into the game. And actually, very funny, we have a mutual buddy, Brad Upton. I
love Brad.
Yeah, me too. I've had T-shirts over the years based off of a joke about my stepdad's hearing aids where he says, I heard enough yesterday. And they sold pretty well, probably the best-selling shirt I've ever had. I had a couple left, and last weekend in Baltimore, I was opening for Brad, and I sold a handful of the ones I had left, so we have more shows together this summer, so I bought 36 more of those shirts just to sell on the Brad shows.
That's cool as hell. You know, there's some headliners, they won't let their openers sell merch.
Very few I've come to discover, but yes, there have been some people to tell me no. But I got the T-shirts, I have bottle openers, I actually have shot glasses and rocks glasses, but they're glass. They're nice, but they're difficult to travel with. So they're more just giveaways to friends and family if anybody wants one. And I have guitar picks. And believe it or not, this is going to sound crazy in the year of our Lord 2024, but people every now and then will still buy CDs.
No shit.
I have about 2,000 sitting at my parents' house, but when I travel on the road, I'll bring like 12 or 15, and honestly, I just sell them for $5, or if you buy a shirt, I'll give you one, and you'd be surprised that in a weekend, I could probably still sell 5 or 7.
Well, a lot of new cars still come with CD players, believe it or not. I'm a bit of a car freak. I'm a gearhead. And the 2024 Lexus IS. And Lexus is a nice brand.
Yes, they are.
Right there front and center.
Nice.
Little slot for the CD because they haven't updated it since about 2010. They've given it small tech and styling updates. But to redesign a whole center console is actually extremely expensive. Yeah. So right there, the new Lexus CD player.
No kidding. There. Did not know that. I mean, I haven't bought a CD in years and years, easily since before the pandemic, but like growing up with CDs, I got them for all 3 of my albums, and I used to love just buying the new Foo Fighters or the new Green Day and taking the plastic off and reading the liner notes and seeing what picture was behind the disc itself. So even though they're outdated, I still thumb through them, and I'm like, pretty cool.
No, I really miss the experience. I mean, I wouldn't go back. The convenience of Spotify and Apple Music
I
is
know,
just too good.
which just royally screw over comedians in every possible way, but still need it in my life every day because I need music and podcast in my car and on walks.
Yes,
And
yes. We're very
about
much
my
part of the problem, even
we
though.
are part of the problem. They owe me so much more money than I pay them a month. But here I am, Alexa, play the, and she just lit up. But
So does your stuff get a lot of hits on Spotify, Pat, and you're not getting?
not so much on Spotify. Pandora was where I was getting a good amount of streams, and I mean, I know there's so many semantics and so many things under the umbrella of Pandora, but like I had close to Alexa, stop. I had close to 1 million streams on Pandora, which sounds
Yeah.
amazing on
Yeah.
paper, but it's like $13 a quarter. Like quarterly. I mean, my annual checks would be for like anywhere between like 60 and $90.
Jeez, dude.
I mean, I don't know if it's exact, but I think it's like 13 streams equals a penny.
It's so disheartening.
I know. So it's like, yes, I've made money on streaming, but it's like not even a thought in my mind. Like, what's my check going to be for? Gas money? Like, it's not even,
Here's how little money I'm making from Meta. I didn't know I was making money.
Okay.
until I got a notification. The only reason I've been able to monetize that is by doing the personalized roast through Venmo.
Yeah.
But apparently there's tips and bonuses. And I think to make money, like on one of those apps, you must just be in the fuck you numbers.
Oh, I'm sure. I think of the first people that come to mind are like Bert and Tom.
Yeah.
I'm sure Kevin Hart, Chelsea Handler. We can name all the big names, but Bert and Tom come to mind the most because Tom has the whole podcast network. They have their own podcast. They have their vodka. They are everywhere, and their lives are also videoed every day of their life. That's weird to me.
Yeah, that's weird to me too. I would snap.
But they probably also make a shit ton just by going into a 7-Eleven and drinking from half a can of Pepsi. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, I know. Sometimes I always think about like how being super famous would kind of be a drag, but then I stop myself, and that's like complaining about the possibility of like fucking Scarlett Johansson too much. I'm like, that's not something to be too worried about.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I don't even think fame is on my mind. I'm just happy to get paid to do stand-up and get paid to travel. Along those lines, is there anybody I spent a lot of time touring with Sebastian Maniscalco and Segura before they blew up, and it was cool to watch them from not even selling out clubs to coming back to town and adding a show or two, then coming back town to a theater, and then just watching that rise from like my front row seat. Is there anybody you've been alongside that for?
That I've worked with in the past that has experienced kind of a meteoric
rise. Or anybody you worked with on the regular and you kind of just watch them?
No, not on the regular. I hosted 6 shows for Tom Segura at Wise Guys New Year's Eve 2015 into 2016. And they were great shows. He sold out 3 shows in one night. And even though he was hilarious, you would never guess, this guy's going to be doing arenas.
Oh, yeah.
In a few years.
In 7 years from now, yeah.
But no, that's a good question. I don't think there's anybody I've worked with regularly who I kind of like was right there to sort of witness their crazy ascent. I might think of somebody the moment this podcast ends.
Oh, well, that's chime in at any time.
Yeah.
I love getting to talk to my buddies and getting their backstory. And, you and I worked together years ago, but I would love to hear about how you got into it. Like, tell me about when you were a kid or a teenager and you first discovered comedy and what your interests were like way back when.
Sure. I mean, I was always really funny.
Yeah.
You should be a comedian is a phrase I heard like on the weekly all through junior high.
Were you class clown or were you the quiet, funny kid? Or neither?
Kind of neat. I feel like the class clown is somebody who's doing it purely for like the attention.
Oh,
I was
100%.
I was mean to teachers, which nobody else really was. I was the kid who wasn't afraid to be mean to the teachers. My drama teacher is the guy. I was in drama class when 9/11 was happening, and I told him we shouldn't be getting this kind of news from the drama teacher.
That's hilarious. Like
Which,
that day as it was happening.
as it was happening, and I was, yeah, this isn't. We should wait until we're in math.
I was just
something.
gonna say math teacher. All right, there's two
That's
towers. One plane
yeah,
hits one.
it's math teacher news. Um, and I was really funny with my group of friends, but I had never really given any real thought to becoming a comedian because even as a kid, I knew, well, that's a fucking really stupid idea. Like, I didn't take it seriously at all. I'm like, that's a terrible, terrible idea. So when I was a kid, like, I wanted to be a gangster, like a drug lord. This is when I was a stupid young kid and I didn't really consider all of like the ethical dilemmas that came along with being a drug lord. But I loved to do drugs and I loved to get fucked up. And
Mm-hmm.
I loved to sell drugs to my buddies. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be like a guy who parties and makes a lot of money doing and selling drugs. And that was my ambition
How
from
old are you around this time frame?
18 to early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. But then
I
I
mean,
started
prime
doing,
partying time.
yeah, for sure. For sure. Then I just started partying way too hard and loved partying more than any of my other friends and got straight up hooked on painkillers and eventually Oxycontin. And Oxycontin 80s at the time were like $60 and I was doing several a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was selling cocaine to support my Oxycontin habit, but I wasn't a baller because I had such an expensive Oxycontin habit. And started doing heroin, and before I know it, I was a fucking drug addict with a criminal record. And I wasn't a cool gangster at all. I was just like this scummy junkie who was stealing catalytic converters and copper and committing check. Every day was just,
Fraud
giddy
and
up
crime.
every single day for
Dude,
years.
you do have funny stuff about it. Like
Oh, yeah.
I remember our shows with Dan Cummins and you opening the show with this stuff. And I remember laughing my balls off because I never really heard anybody take that angle. Like I've heard a million comics talk about drugs and stuff, but you went so deep and so personal with it. And I just never heard anybody really go that far into it. And I thought it was one, absolutely hysterical, but such also just awesome, honest material.
Well, and that's what I started joking about when I first got into comedy before I was good enough at comedy to pull off that kind of material. And my shit at the beginning was dark about like doing surgery on myself when my veins collapsed and having to put maxi pads over the wounds. And the audience is like, oh my God. And this is when I was just like a few months removed from it. But the final time I went to rehab was in 2009. And I was 25. And this is when I was finally starting to be like, okay, being a drug addict sucks. I'd lost a bunch of friends. My brother died, who was a using buddy. And I was like, this life fucking blows. And before rehab, I was kind of like, if I die, that's whatever. But now I was kind of like, maybe, I don't know what I want to be, but I know I don't want to be a drug addict anymore. And started to actually sort of explore sobriety and recovery and all of that. And while I was in rehab, there were two channels that worked. One was A&E, where I would watch Hoarders and feel so much better about being a drug addict. Because I was like, yo, these people
are nuts.
Yes. And the other channel that worked was Comedy Central. And at the time, they were playing all of their greatest hits from their half-hour specials. Jim Gaffigan, Dave Attell, Mitch Hedberg, Lewis Black, Mike Birbiglia.
Yep.
And I just found myself really falling in love with stand-up comedy. I was like, these guys are so funny.
Those Comedy Central presents, this has come up on the podcast many times, have such a special place in my heart. All the presents, all the premium blends, I have so many of those memorized. I watched every comic, whether I liked them or not. Same. I have probably seen every single episode so many times each.
Me too. That's what got me to fall in love with comedy.
I used to get starstruck by people that had a presents. Like, even if they're like my friends or buddies now, but like when Helium first came to Philly and these comics started coming through town, I'd be like, oh my God, there's Tom Cotter, there's Tammy Pescatelli. Like, I thought it was like the apex of comedy to have that 22 minutes on Comedy Central. And then I mean, it was such a cool credit at the time, but now, you know, I don't know if it holds any weight in the industry at all anymore. But like in my late teens, early 20s, that was like the end all be all. Oh my God, they have a half hour presents.
Yep. 100%. And no, it's not what it used to be, but at the time, and a lot of those specials were so fucking solid, man. So good. My favorite was Mitch Hedberg's.
Oh yeah. I watched it 2 weeks ago. I just watched it 2 weeks ago. Yep.
When he was sitting down because as
Out of Defeat.
Film, yes. So I fell in love with comedy in rehab, and then I get out of rehab, and I'm going to meetings and everything like that, but life is like such a drag. Every day I just wake up trying not to use, and then get through the day, and my whole life is just spent willing myself not to use heroin. I was doing nothing in my life that was fun or interesting or cool, and really, really boring, because the heroin addict life, even though it's a nightmare, it's not boring.
Like, no, it doesn't sound like it would be. It sounds like an adventure.
It is an adventure. It's like a horrifying adventure, but you're not bored. But now I'm so bored, and I start like watching more and more comedy at a rehab. And we were talking about record stores. I went to a record store I loved called Graywill and bought 2 DVDs of the best of Comedy Central Presents, and I just watched them over and over and over again.
You study them. You're like learning. You're not even laughing at that point. You're learning what they're doing, how they're saying it. Like, you truly are immersing yourself and learning the tricks and seeing how it works.
And I just got, yes, exactly. And I got really into comedy itself, stand-up comedy itself. I bought that I Am Comic DVD. I don't know if you remember that one.
Oh, God. I Am Comic, when stand-up stood out. Oh, I have all of them.
Yeah. Okay. And started doing a little bit of research about comedy around Salt Lake City and found out about Wise Guys Open Mic. I go, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go do it. And I went to the Wise Guys downtown, the old club at Trolley Square. I didn't know shit, man. I was like, okay, I'll probably do about 20 minutes, you know?
You were that oblivious?
I was that oblivious. It was my first time in a comedy club.
Did you have anything written down? Like, were you jotting ideas down, or were you just going to, like, freeball this?
No. I had written it all down. I had a couple of pages, and it was so pathetic. Like, in parentheses, it would be like, pause for clap.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Mike Birbiglia had a great story. Like, his very first gig, some bar owner was like, can you do 30 or 40? He's like, yeah. And he's like, at 4 minutes, I could feel I was going to throw up.
Yeah. I was so oblivious, and just the complete opposite of how I approach comedy now. Now I write down a few keywords and I have an idea of what I'm going to say, but I'm really focusing on just like being in the moment and being present. But at the time I wrote it down, I was like, you know, then kind of look to the left and smirk. It was so embarrassing.
Giving yourself too many instructions here.
Yeah.
It's hard to get your own jokes down, let alone writing down act outs and how you think you should move.
It was so ridiculous. And the manager is like, okay, you got 3 minutes. And at the time I was like, 3 minutes? Who the fuck can do anything with 3 minutes? Before learning 3 minutes is more than enough time to eat a dick.
Oh, yeah.
And
you can do that in 12 seconds.
Yes. And I distinctly remember my first time, I riffed on the guy who went before me, who was like this old guy. Because I had a joke about working at my dad's produce stand and all of the old people who were there. And I say, not as old as the guy. I don't remember exactly what I just said. But it was like one of those tricks where you, at an open mic, you riff on the person who goes in front of you, and the chances of it killing are so much higher.
Yeah,
you
because
know.
it's in the moment and it's fresh in their minds, and you're just keeping the energy going. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but at the time I had no idea that was basically a cheat code, and I thought, oh, and I got that first huge laugh. I was like, well, that ruled. And then I got off stage and said goodbye to a few people I had met, and then the rest of the night I was just thinking about my set, and then I woke up the next day thinking about my set and my jokes. I was like, oh my God, I'm not thinking about heroin. I'm actually really thinking about me doing comedy.
It took over that space in your brain.
Just like that. Yeah. And then I went back and bombed my dick off for the next few months. But that first big laugh is what, carried me through. It was like, I can do it. I gotta laugh my first time.
I absolutely love that because, long story short, my first 2 sets went well, and then sets 3 through like 12 or 15, I just ate it. Like I started doing stand-up weekly, Laugh House open mic on Wednesdays, did well first Wednesday, second Wednesday. I don't have a good Wednesday again till like March.
Yeah.
And that's no exaggeration. But then I started to meet people, figure stuff out, find other open mics, meet more people, and then just take it all in. And I was like, okay, this one has never gotten a laugh. Stop saying that.
Yes.
This, I think, is funny. Why isn't it working? Took me probably a good 4 or 5 months to look at what I had and be like, all right, let's break this down even more.
It took me a few months to learn, I should actually write jokes.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to just be a storyteller, but...
Oh, a storyteller out the gate is a whole different animal.
When you're not at all comfortable with the silence...
Oh, yeah, you need to be.
It was such a massive mistake, and I go, I should write jokes.
That's one thing I loved about touring with Segura. I watched his favorite special of mine to this day is mostly stories, and I was touring with him as he did that, and I watched him build Mike Tyson from like 5 minutes to 12, and I just loved watching the crowd hang on every word for a full story. Like, It's so awesome to take them on that ride.
That would be really cool to be able to watch it grow.
What was the scene like?
What it began.
Yeah. What was the scene like when you started in Salt Lake City? Was there a big scene? I mean, obviously you guys had a club there. It's a major city. Do you guys have a strong local scene?
It was pretty good. So at the time when I started, there was kind of a rift between Wise Guys and the supposed alt scene. But Wise Guys didn't seem to care or be aware of it. So it was like this one-sided rivalry that was confusing, but I think it had kind of had its heyday by the time I started, and just the remnants of that feud were sort of still around when I started. But Wise Guys was the main open mic, and it was a great open mic. We would get 150 civilians.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, even still today, it's a great mic. And
I did it. I flew in a day early for that Dan Cummins week just to do the mic. I mean, I flew in a day early anyways because I like that if I travel across the country. Yeah. But I knew you guys had an open mic that night, and I went, and it was awesome.
You can actually get work done.
Yeah.
For sure.
I remember everybody was doing 3, and I think I met Keith that night, and he let me do like 5 or 6, and I really appreciated that. Like,
yeah,
I just flew 2,000 miles that day, and I'm there all weekend, but the extra 2 or 3 minutes gave me enough to it was cool. Better than just being up and on real quick. Up and done.
How did your set go?
Oh, dude, the open mic was great. And I remember thinking, now Helium here in Philly, we had a great open mic, but sometimes, it's still an open mic. Sometimes there'd be 8 people. And I was like, man, it stood out to me big time.
Yep. And at the time, I just thought that's how open mics were. I was very, very spoiled. And in the Trolley Square days, this wasn't Keith's idea, but the guy who was running it, his name was Jack. He couldn't fit all of the comedians. There were 50 comedians signing up. So he said, if you bring a friend, you'll get preferential treatment. It wasn't a bringer show. It was a mic that just if you bring a friend, you'll get preferential treatment. I don't think Keith was aware of it because I don't think he would be down with that. And I, at the time, had left all of my friends. It's part of getting clean is you can't hang out with your drug addict buddies anymore. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a friend in the world. So what I did was I was taking 2 trains to get to the club at the time because my license was suspended. And I was like, I ain't taking 2 trains to get to the club to not go on. So I would get a homeless guy and buy him a ticket and buy him a meal and say, just tell him you're my buddy.
No
Okay.
kidding.
Yeah, I did that several times.
The same homeless guy?
No, it was a different homeless guy.
Okay, please tell me
Yeah.
where they came from. How did you?
Well, right
Please.
outside the club, there was a little island in the middle of the road. All
Okay.
the time, there's a homeless guy there with a
I guess
with a
every city
sign.
has those. I can think of Phillies. Yeah.
Yeah. And luckily, there was a little homeless area right by the club. And I said, hey, man, I'm a comedian and I have to bring a friend to do a spot. Why don't you let me buy you a ticket? It won't cost you anything. And I'll give you a few dollars and I'll even give you a few more dollars to get some wings or something like that. Just be like, I'm here to see Andy Gold. And he said, okay. And he would dip right away so he could go buy his dope. He wouldn't stay for the show, but that's okay. He didn't need to. He just needed to tell him that he was there to see Andy. So, yeah. And then,
Amazing. No, that's
yeah, I wasn't going to go out there and not do it. So that's what I did.
How many times did you pull this off with a homeless person?
Oh, a dozen times. Yeah.
Were you scared to approach them? I went to college in North Philly, and it was campus was safe, but the surrounding areas was pretty scary. And to this day, I just get terrified that they're gonna be aggressive or pull a knife out or just something. And
they were scared.
Here you are approaching them.
Well, in my heroin days, there was
comedy.
a park downtown called Pioneer Park that was full of homeless junkies. And when my plug wasn't answering the phone, I went down there all the time. So I guess I had gotten a little bit desensitized.
I guess that okay. That makes a lot more. So you were probably a little more comfortable in that environment.
Well, so that didn't scare me at all. Back in the junkie days, what was scary was picking up dope in the middle of the park. And then all of the other homeless junkies saw me and I'm walking back to my car and they would actually converge on me. Like, that was a little
intimidating.
Shit. Well, yeah, there's this one dude who saw me there all the time and he just kept asking me for me to share my shit with him because he was dope sick. He said, come on, baby. He was like a Dave Chappelle character almost. Like, yeah. So that was never fun, walking back to my car and seeing them like hyenas just slowly walk up to a lion.
Is this kind of material still a big part of your act, or was that just something you did in the beginning?
No, it still is because, I do a lot of like rehabs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they expect a good percentage of the material to be recovery related.
Yeah, and that's awesome because I'm sure a lot of people come up to you afterwards and tell you how it's relatable and how much they enjoyed it because it's so deep and personal to them.
I'll tell you something, man, that's crazy is when I started in 2010, every once in a while, somebody would come up and talk about, my brother is an addict, my sister is an addict. But now it happens all of the time because the opioid epidemic has gotten so fucking out of control.
Doesn't matter. And any city, east suburbs, does not matter.
Yeah. And it's like, damn, everybody has a family member or multiple family members now that have gone through it.
Yeah.
And it's wild. Less of my material now. I don't try to write about it. I just try to write about, what comes naturally.
Yeah.
And it seems like the last year or so, most of my new jokes have not been about it.
But they're always in your back pocket for whatever given reason. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a mighty deep well. What was the open mic scene like in Philly? I imagine there were way more mics, but were they good?
There were good ones and bad ones. It seems like there's a ton in Philly right now. I live out in the suburbs and I don't get to the city as often as I used to, but from what I see on social media, there is a ton of new and newer comics in Philly that run their own open mics and bar shows, and it seems like there is just a ton right now.
Yeah.
But the main one, I cut my teeth at Helium, which is still my home club, Helium in Philly. The open mic was great, but it was, dude, there could be 100 people one Tuesday and then 14 the next Tuesday. But a lot of times we would get really cool drop-ins. Like Todd Glass is from here. He would come in and do it before his headlining weekend. Same with like Dom Herrera. Maria Bamford would do it. So every now and then we got like, it would be really cool to see these drop-ins or sometimes like the comic coming in from out of town who was featuring that weekend would come in a day early, like funny guys like Kevin Shea and Ryan Stout and people from Austin and San Francisco would come
Yeah.
in. So it was really cool, man. Like, and then Tuesdays was our hangout. So all the comics would do the open mic, and then like 20 of us would go to this one bar around the corner, have drinks, do bar trivia, and just like go over each other's sets. And like to this day, still some of the coolest, most fun memories of stand-up were being that new to the game, but the hang after the open mic was so much more fun and meaningful than like, you know, being on stage and doing the set itself.
The happiest memories I have in comedy were in those early years.
Yeah.
After a mic or after we all did guest sets at Wise Guys, because Keith does not do a headliner feature MC format. He does a MC, 2 or 3 guest spots. And yeah, me and my buddies, we would all go to a diner after the shows and just shoot the shit for hours until the early morning hours. It was the best, dude. It was just such a simple joy. Just talking about comedy, the comedians we loved, the comedians we didn't like, bust balls, ruthless.
Dude, to this day, talking shop is like my absolute favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, I kind of miss it. Like, since I moved back from LA and Utah, there's funny comedians here for sure, but I don't hang out after shows as much as I used to. I've kind of become like the old guy a little bit.
I feel that in my bones. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know that I'm like well liked and everything, but I guess I just don't have it in me to go hang out at the diner until 2 a.m.
No,
anymore,
I don't
like
either. I'm also getting old, and I like being in bed by 11 or 11:30, and I like being up at 7 or 7:30. I'm a morning person. I really am.
Too.
I love it. I got so much shit done before this podcast today. It was amazing. It's not even noon here, and I feel so accomplished.
Yeah. That's how old are you now, Pat House?
I'll be 40 in November.
I'll be 40 in August.
You're 3 months ahead of me.
Look at us, dude. We're 40-year-old dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember being 25 and thinking about being 40?
No. Well, yeah, I probably thought I'd be more successful. I mean, I'm happy to travel and make money and stuff, but I probably thought I'd be a little more not famous, but a little more successful. But it's all good. I'm so happy, dude. I love my career, and I have shows next week, and my podcast has a sponsor. That's amazing, right?
That is dope as hell, actually. That's huge.
Yes, today's podcast is brought to you by Magic Mind. They are fantastic, and it's little performance energy shots that I use all the time for my mental performance. I am sometimes sluggish. I am not productive. Even though I am a morning person, I am getting so much better at getting stuff done in the morning. But the good folks over at Magic Mind have just the thing that helped me. I use it in the morning after my coffee wears off, and it helps me get through the rest of my day to get stuff done. If you go to magicmind.com/doit, that is magicmind.com/doit, you can get 56% off your order in the next 10 days with the promo code DOIT20. All caps, DOIT20. So go to magicmind.com/doit. These are great mental performance shots. Go to the magicmind.com and make it happen.
I saw Pete Holmes pumping.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
Oh, I saw Pete Holmes pumping Magic Mind a little bit ago. Nootropics?
They're great. They are great. Got a little bottle of it right here that you can see right here. The listeners cannot, but you can. And I'm not even holding that to the camera properly.
Where do you get it?
Through magicmind.com.
So, you know what I was just thinking about when you were pumping that stuff about how I'm becoming like the old guy in the scene now? Something that occurred to me that should be so obvious that I should have been doing all along is, the new comics, they always kind of want your approval.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never just go up to somebody who's not funny and be like, you fucking suck.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. Go ahead, continue, and then I got to throw my angle on.
I've just never given compliments, like fake compliments. I've just never done that. And I was thinking,
I don't think I've given fake ones either. because if I didn't enjoy your set, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to be mean. I'm still going to say hello and whatever, but
Sure,
I'm not going to blow smoke because you were up there.
Exactly. But now I'm starting to think, I wonder if it would be easier just to give fake compliments. Because
I'm too old and tired.
Yeah.
See, funny, you said newer comics want your approval. I don't think a lot of newer comics in the Philly even know who I am because I'm not really around as much. I mean, there is some local stuff I do. I headline Helium every year and whatever, but like, I feel like there's a ton of new comics. I've DM'd local Philly comics to get on their shows, and some people have just not even replied or. So I just feel like since I'm not really around too much and I'm lucky enough to be on the road a good amount, the newer wave or two just don't even know who I am.
Oh, that sounds nice.
I mean, it's not bad. I just want to perform in Philly more.
Yeah.
Like there seems to be a lot of great comedy in Philly. A lot of newer comics seem to have great open mics and bar shows, and I want to jump in more, but I just don't feel like going to the city or going to the city for like 3 minutes.
How far? Yeah, no shit. How far are you from the city?
35 minutes by train, and it's so easy. But, I just have to, like, do my research. You know what I mean? I have to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever go into New York? Because that's not terribly far.
Absolutely not. No, not a fan.
Me neither.
I lived there for a year in 2011. I tried it for a year. And it was fun. I was a lot of hanging out. My two very good friends there were Adrienne Appalucci. She took me under her wing, and she's a very, very good friend to this day. And Lance Weiss, another very funny New York comic. Those two really held my hand through the New York year. But like I was hanging out and not performing. So I would come back down to Philly every 2 or 3 or 4 days for decent stage time and to pick up a bartending shift. Oh, I get to do a real open mic and bartend a wedding going back to Philly. You know what I mean?
Yep, totally. I had a very similar experience. I lived in New York for about a year in 2013.
Oh, okay. I had no idea you were there.
Mm-hmm. And you remember when I told you that Wise Guys Mike is unbelievable, 150 civilians?
Yeah.
So after a few months of eating shit, when it clicked for me, it clicked pretty good. And I was kind of fortunate enough to sort of not yet awesome at comedy or anything, but kind of figure out how to do 5-7 minutes after a few months, and started getting tons of guest spots at Wise Guys and tons of emceeing spots. And, kind of became a staple of the scene a little bit pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, it's time to go to New York because I hear in New York, there's hundreds of open mics, but I just didn't know the open mics are 3 stoned comics playing on their phones
at 4 p.m. on a Monday.
Yeah. And I was like, oh fuck, this is a kick in the balls.
Yeah.
It was a huge wake up call. It's a learning experience, that's for sure. But after about a year of doing that, and I was like, you know what, man, I'm still so new in comedy where my number one priority is just getting better at comedy. I mean, I think that should always be the top priority.
Yeah.
But especially at that time, I was getting better at comedy in Utah, where maybe I wasn't doing 20 sets a week. I was doing 7 sets a week, but they were 10-minute sets in front of 200 people.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah. And I was like, I was getting so much better doing that than 2 minutes in front of 5 inattentive people. In fact, in New York, I felt myself digressing a little bit.
I agree 100%. And also, like, I had I think I had $14,000 saved, which I was pretty responsible with it, but I still needed money and would like more. And I had a day job, a bartending job I was loosely hanging on to. So if someone needed me to cover a shift, let's say, hey, can you bartend Tuesday afternoon? Yes, of course I can, because the Helium open mic is Tuesday night. That's 2 birds with 1 stone. Then I would go to New York, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Oh, can you bartend this wedding on Saturday? Yep. Back down to Philly because that's $500. Like it was just, I didn't utilize New York. I mean, I know I did. It just so much easier to come down to Philly for comedy work and real work. But I will say my favorite thing, other than, having Adrienne become a very good friend, she's very successful now and we still keep in touch a lot. I would hang at the Cellar almost every single night. And man, like to this day, I love Dave Attell. I would just
He's
watch
the
Dave
best.
Attell night after night, just do 20 minutes. And then the next night, a different 20 minutes. Then 2 days later, it would be some from that first set and from the second. And he would just throw shit to the breeze. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm watching my favorite comic 4 nights a week.
Yeah,
That was
that would be
pretty
amazing.
cool.
That'd be really cool. I like Dave Attell is every comic's favorite comic, and I know
Especially
it.
for guys our age who watched Insomniac when they
Yes.
were 18. And,
Yes.
Yep.
And
Thanks for
when
the
I was-
Memories is my number one favorite comedy album.
Same here.
It is
I-
rapid fire machine guns. He could have. It's just
Should have hung out, man.
oh, it ends on the
Yeah.
callback, and
Yes.
also like okay, I always when we talk nuts and bolts of jokes, I always bring this one up. Some people are against drunk driving. I call these people the cops, but sometimes you got no choice. Those kids got to get to school. That's 2 sentences and 3 punchlines. Like,
Yes.
some people are against drunk driving. Not all. Some is a punchline. I
Yes.
call these people the cops is the punchline. And then these kids got to get to school. Number 3. 2 sentences, 3 jokes. Like, and the whole album is full of that.
Yes. Yeah, he's so great. I remember the first time I saw him live. So
Wise Guys?
Brand new. It was at Wise Guys at the old West Valley Club. And as good as the new downtown club is, that West Valley Club, Pat House, was fucking pure electricity.
Comedy heaven.
But, dude, yeah.
Some rooms just have that air about them.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a legendary room amongst touring comedians. Like, it was mentioned kind of like up there with Comedy Works in Denver as being this legendary room. And I knew who Dave Attell was. I saw his half-hour special, and I was a fan. But I went to go check out his show at West Valley, and it was sold out. And I'm just watching this, and the room was vibrating. Like, it was It felt like you could feel it in the air. And it was these waves of laughter because he's so rapid fire that when one portion of the room is still laughing at 2 seconds ago, the other half of the room is laughing at the stuff he's saying now.
He's already moved on.
It had this wave-like energy going through the room, this wave of laughter, and it was vibrating in there. And to this day, I've never seen anybody just fuck up a room like that.
Dude.
And I was watching it, and I was like, that's what I want to do more than anything. I mean, I'll never get there. None of us will ever get there. But it was still, we were talking about not even thinking about fame earlier. The thing that I want in comedy more than anything is just to be able to fucking crush.
Even when you are in the, like, featuring and you crush like that, there's nothing like it. I mean, it's cool to do that when you headline your weekend spots, but if you're in the middle that weekend and you have 20 or 25 minutes and you just murder the entire time, there's still nothing like it.
Yeah.
Like, killing on a feature set's better than a mediocre headlining set.
Do you ever get kind of giddy in almost like a petty way when people after the show tell you you were funnier than the headliner?
Yeah.
I love it.
Can I name drop? This is the perfect opportunity to say this story. I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast, and I don't want to name drop here or say something cocky, but you brought this up. I was with Tom Segura at Good Nights in Raleigh, the old club, and we were selling CDs outside because the two crowds couldn't meet. It was a small lobby or whatever, and some guy was buying my CD, and he goes, "I thought you were funnier than Tom." And Tom was right next to me, and he goes, "I'm right here." Tom just goes, "I'm right." Tom called him on it, and after Tom was, we joked about it. He's like, "That's awesome. That's so cool that happened." But I love that Tom just said that right to the dude's face.
It is rude.
Oh, it's totally rude. Yeah. But yeah, Tom was talking to somebody else as that was happening. I had my transaction with this guy, and someone else was talking to Tom, but Tom was still within earshot, an arm's reach away.
That's so good.
Dude, I want to... Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. This was years ago, and it was at the West Valley Club, and I'm not going to say her name, because this would not be a story she would like, but I really fucking I had a great set.
Mm-hmm.
Did about 20 minutes in front of her, and she really, really struggled. And for whatever reason, she was so nice. I had no problems with her. I made a point of standing next to her after the show so everybody would talk to me.
Which you may not realize at the time, like in that situation.
Yeah.
Now, as a veteran, you know to maybe give them space. Stand on the other side of the bar or something.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah, that's always been one of my favorite things.
Well, were people complimentary towards you and not to her as you are right
yes.
next to each other? Okay, so it became vocal.
Yeah. And I was mindful of what was happening, and I was giddy. I have a bit of I don't know, I have an evil side.
Okay. I mean, if you... Were you ever in a situation where, like, okay, let's say you go in with the opposite approach, whether maybe you're opening for a headliner you don't care for, or maybe it's like a local show and you're opening for somebody that you don't think is great, and you go up there before somebody and you're like, I'm gonna fucking murder and make this very difficult for them.
Always.
Yeah.
If it's somebody I don't like.
I've had that in my head with celebrities.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes it has worked. Not going to say any names, but sometimes it doesn't always pan out. But man, I wish I had a bigger set of balls to name names here. But okay, but you've done that too.
Oh yeah. I'm going to bury this motherfucker.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm going to go up. I'm not going to work on anything. I'm going to do all my best shit. I'm going to do all my closers. I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to bury this motherfucker.
It is a sick mentality that we all have.
It's twisted.
Because we're all nuts. And, okay, take it like this, too. We are all nuts. Comics, we are all very insecure. We are all sensitive. Every single comic is insecure, sensitive, full of self-doubt. We second-guess everything. But the night I decided to do stand-up, I saw Dave Attell, Lewis Black, Mitch Hedberg, and Mike Birbiglia on the same show, and I sat in the balcony and said, I could do this. We're maniacal.
Yeah. Yes. Totally.
I fucking doubt every move I make, but I'm watching four kings destroy, and I'm like, yeah, I could do this.
Yeah. Well, that's why.
And then I did.
That's why I thought I was going to do 20 minutes my first open mic.
I love it. We're all out of our minds. That's what I love about it.
The only thing I ask with comedians' insecurity is just try to keep a lid on it a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. You learn to reel it in. Like, we all know we're nuts. You keep it in private, like you keep it amongst your friends, and you just don't air it to the whole world, because we all know we're nuts. You don't blatantly say, I'm going to murder in front of this guy in the green room to the host.
Yes.
Yeah.
All I ask is you keep a lid on it. Don't be a comic who, like, when you're bombing at open mic, make a point to tell the audience, well, I normally get weekend spots, so this shit doesn't even matter. Like,
no, that sentence has never come out of my mouth.
You don't seem like the type.
No, neither do you.
I'm not.
Before we wind down here, I want to end with you roasting kids, man. It's such a hilarious thing that you do on... So it's all, I mean, I see it on Instagram. Do you do it on TikTok as well?
TikTok keeps taking the videos down.
That sounds about right, I guess.
I tried, but they don't tolerate it. So
anyway, long story short, on Instagram, plug your Instagram account here now. It's just at Andy Gold. Andy Gold Comedy?
Andy Gold Comedy.
Andy Gold Comedy. People from all over submit their childhood photos, and you roast them, and it is absolutely hysterical. So when did you start this, and how did this catch on?
I started it fairly recently, I guess.
I was kind of thinking that. Oh, I didn't realize it was that recent, but I knew it just within this year of, or still even first half of 24.
Not even a year. I started it in October of 23. And I mean, I never thought it would go viral like that. Like, I'm such a huge believer, Pat, in just doing what you think is funny instead of doing what you think will be popular. Because who the fuck knows?
Find your audience.
Who knows what's going to hit? None of us know. So just do what you think is funny. And I just thought those were so funny. And at the time, people weren't sending me photos yet. I was finding pictures from the 70s and the 80s. And
okay, I definitely have seen some of those clips when you first started doing it then. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, from like awkward family photos. And I didn't have any hangups with it because I was like, these kids are adults now and they're putting their pictures out there publicly. So
fair game.
It shouldn't. And people have actually emailed me and said, oh my God, that's me. I love it. I've had 0 people complain, but I just thought there was something so unforgivable about being a grown man making fun of kids.
Yeah, you're punching down on an innocent, on innocence. Yeah,
on a child. You know, it's just totally reprehensible. And I hate this word like naughty, but it just felt so fucked up. And I just did it for a couple weeks and was having a ball. I was like, this is so much fun. And then, a few of the videos popped off and none of them have gotten like tens of millions of views. But the crazy thing is just the engagement on them.
Yeah.
Tons of comments, tons of shares, tons of follows. And then it just grew into this whole thing.
And does that lead to more submissions? Oh my God, this guy's so funny. And then the person so-and-so sends that video too, sends their childhood photos. They tell their husband or wife, they send you a photo.
Yep. And it just happened totally
organically. Oh, that's so cool.
People were sending me, hey, roast me. And
guilty. I sent you one.
And I'm going to do it when, tell me when this podcast comes out. And I'm going to pump this podcast when I roast the picture of you in your karate suit.
Spoiler, it's the karate photo. I did send you 2 though, so don't tell me which one. It's dealer's choice.
Oh fuck, I ruined it for you.
Well, no, I sent you 2 karate ones though.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, so
okay.
dealer's choice.
I won't tell you which one.
Yeah, no. I can't wait to find out.
But now I probably get like 100 pics a day.
Jesus.
Yeah, and I do personalized roasts now, where if like you really, really want. It's $50 for 60 seconds and $75 for 90 seconds. And I just make those videos on the green screen and email them to people, and they can do whatever they want with them. And I've been doing that now for the last couple months, and it's become like my number one source of income. It's absurd.
That's crazy, man. That's so cool. That is so cool. I love it, man. And I hope anybody who's listening follows Andy Gold Comedy and checks out these kid roasting videos because they are absolutely hysterical.
Oh, and as of yesterday, I'm doing grandmas now too.
Oh, whole new market.
Yeah.
Whole new market. All right, dude. Thank you so much for being here. It was great to catch up. I love talking shop, and I hope we cross paths sometime this year, man. I would love to get out your way again. Any plans for you to head east?
You know what? Well, I'm doing the live version of the Roasted Show at Wise Guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I already did one about a month ago and got about 110 people on a Sunday in Salt Lake, which isn't bad.
No, that's fantastic. 100 people on a Sunday is good.
Mm-hmm. But I'm going to record it and, make a little promo reel out of it. And I'm thinking about trying to book some one-nighters with it, just like I did with my recovery show. And if I do that, I would love to come to Helium or Punchline again and have Pat House on the show.
Let me know, man. I would love to blow you out of the water. That was a great callback. I was proud of that.
It was.
All right. Thank you, man. Andy Gold, thank you.
Hey, brother. Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
You got it.